Hello, this is Kevin Cofield with Cofield Aviation. In this video, I just wanted to make a real quick video on how to plug in a flight and plan a flight on the ForeFlight application. In this example, we're just going to plan a flight from Gadsden over to PDK, and then how we basically go through the steps to get the weather briefing and how that all looks on ForeFlight. If you remember, in Part 91, RAWFAT is kind of the acronym that I remember this. The Part 91 things that are required to know for any cross-country flight. So R, we got to know the runway lengths for takeoff and landing. A, alternates. We need to have alternate airports. Basically, have enough fuel to go to an alternate airport in case there's a disabled aircraft at your destination, or maybe there's weather and you need to divert somewhere. Hey, just have enough fuel to where you can get to an alternate airport, maybe a couple alternate airports. W is weather and NodeMs. That's where we're going to get that in the ForeFlight. And then F is fuel, so fuel reserves. That makes it pretty simple. Conservatively, I always like about an hour's worth of fuel. So on a 172, technically it burns around about 8 gallons an hour. Remember, always go in your performance charts to get the exact fuel burn for whatever aircraft that you have. But conservatively, I always like to land with about 10 gallons of fuel in the 172, even though that's a little more than an hour. But as you know, VFR legally during the day, 30 minutes, night is 45 minutes past your destination. The other A for the raw fat, so FA is ATC delays. That's just IFR stuff, so it doesn't apply to VFR. And then T is takeoff data. So we need to make sure that we have our performance charts and get takeoff numbers and landing numbers so that we can take off and land in the runway distance provided. So let's look real quick, and we're going to build this flight going to PDK. So there's a few different ways you can do this. I want to go to the flights page down here on the very bottom. If you look at the very bottom of the iPad, where we see airports, maps, plates, documents, we'll go to flights. Then we're basically just going to build the flight. So in the top left, you'll see a little add button, like we're going to add a flight. And it'll automatically basically come up in this page to where we can add it. First thing we want to do is select the departure time. So we're going to do it based upon like about 6 p.m. This evening. And the date today is September 28th. Departure is pretty simple. We're just going to put in Kilo Golf Alpha Delta. And then destination, we're going to put Kilo Papa Delta Kilo, which is PDK. And we're just going to walk right down through here. It does allow you to add alternates in there if you're doing IFR stuff. But you'll select the aircraft, so November 61651. If you do not have any aircraft in there, if you'll see in the top right button, you can add. So then you just hit add, put in the tow number, put in the aircraft type, and you can add performance profiles in there as well. But I've already got it set in there as November 61651. Performance profile here. Now I've got the updated version, so it gives me a lot of different options with performance. If you've got just the basic, which is fine, you can add your basic performance profile. So you see right down there at the bottom, if you add the basic performance profile, you can give it a name. And you see in yellow, you've got to give it a true airspeed. You've got to give it a fuel burn at a minimum. You can put in climb and descents, and it'll calculate that for you. But at a minimum, we'll put you in here at 100 knots, 8 gallons per hour. Now, where do we find that information? In your flight manual, in your pilot's operating handbook, in the performance section with cruise. So always make sure we're always backing everything up with the flight manuals, okay? So we're going to go with that basic profile just to make it simple. We'll come down here and route, we'll direct. The simplest, best way is straight direct. Then we're going to pick the altitude, and we're going to be VFR Easter. So 3,500 or 5,500, if you'll see 3,500, 5 knot tailwind, 7 knot tailwind, 55. But basically about the same amount of time. Actually takes 1 minute longer to go to 5,500 feet. But I would pick 5,500 feet, gives them more time if you had an engine failure or an emergency. And then basically after that, a lot of people's not going to have all this. This is all the performance, the added performance things as far as payload and whatnot. But You can put in here, say you got it topped off, maximum of 38 gallons. It's showing that you're going to burn 1 gallon for taxi and fuel, 8 gallons to your destination. So fuel landing, you got 29 gallons there. You can also see that if you go up here to the top left where it says Nav Log, we'll push that. And here it gives you a really detailed list of the Nav Log about your flight fuel and reserve fuel and extra fuel and landing fuel based upon all that stuff. So once you get to this point, now we can do a flight briefing. So let's push the briefing button. And as this comes up, what ForeFlight does is it's going to give you the really important stuff first. So TFRs or unsafe NodeMs or anything like that. And if you look right here, there's temporary flight restriction. So that's one of the first things that pops up is TFRs. Also, if there was a closed runway at your departure or destination, that's important stuff. It's going to give you that right at the front. So if you see here, there's a TFR on our route of flight. Now, I'm going to skip reading through all of this right now. I'm going to do the same thing with airments and segments. So it's going to give you TFRs, and it's going to give you unsafe NOTAMs if there are any, and then it's going to go to your segments. So all the important stuff first. So convective segments typically is what, but any segment, and then it's going to go to airments, and then it's going to start getting into the meat of the briefing. So I'm basically going to go and scroll right through this. If you look at the top left, the next one is turbulence high airments. And then the next is synopsis. So I kind of scroll right through there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my map. So let's go back here. If you look at the top right, you can hit that little send button, almost like you're going to email it or something. If you send it to map, then it's going to draw this on the map for you. And here is where I want to select all of my segments, airments, and TFRs and look at it in a perspective like here. I'm more of a visual person, so I like to see everything in one place. So if you look at the top left where this says VFR and ceiling there, this is where you can select or deselect what's on the map. So like here, I've got radar selected, I've got a sectional chart, you can put traffic on there, but airmet segments and center weather advisories, the CWAs, I've got that selected. I've also got the TFR. So it only works if you've got those two selected. So airmet segments, center weather advisories, and the TFRs. And then down here at the bottom, below where it's showing the red glide box, you can put ice, turbulent slow, IFR, and thunderstorm. And then that's going to bring up all of those segments and airments associated with that. So if you see, there's nothing that affects our route of flight right here. You scroll out, looks like you got some convective segments to the southwest, center weather advisories to the southwest, but no airments or segments affect here. Okay, also you can see where the TFR is located on our route of flight, like it was shown in the briefing there over Atlanta. So we can zoom in on that, and you see we go right through the middle of that thing. So let's just click right on the little red circle, and it's going to bring up the information. So if you see, it's active from September 28th at 5:20 p.m. to September the 29th at 12:20 a.m., surface to 3,000 feet. And you can click on that, and then it has all that really detailed kind of stuff. But all I need to know is, hey, if I'm above 3,000 feet, I'm good to go right over the top of that. All right, so this is again kind of where I like to see the big picture. So are there any airments or segments affecting the route of flight? If you look, it's not. So I don't have to worry about any airments or segments, and then the only TFR I've got to worry about is that guy right there and that we just looked at. Now let's go back to flight. So we're going to look at the bottom menu there, push flights, and then that brings us right back to where we was with the briefing. If it takes you back to this page, just simply come back, touch the briefing, and you'll go right back to where you left off. So again, it started out just with the temporary flight restrictions, and then we just go to the bottom left and keep going next and next and next. And again, I like to just kind of skip right through the airments and segments and the TFRs and see all of that on the map. So synopsis is a surface analysis chart, so you can see high pressure dominant there. You got stationary front up to the north, and we covered all of that in the weather information portion of it. Next is going to be the METARs. So this is going to give you the current observations along the route of flight. It shows you in the maps there where these stations are, and kind of just showing you what the current observations are. Not that that's not important, it is. I kind of use the briefing as more of a forecasted deal, so I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the METARs. I focus more on what it's forecasted, and then when I actually am in the airplane taking off, that's when I'm focused on the METAR of what's happening right now to pick what runways and stuff I'm going to take off on. So we're going to go here in the bottom right here. Next, you can see the PIREP. So here's a PIREP, and it looks like it's at 35,000 feet. So no need to look any further than that. In the bottom left, next is going to be cloud cover. So this is going to step into the graphical error forecast. This is going to step us into the terminal error forecast, and then it'll step us into NodeMs and all that. So let's go to cloud coverage, and you can pick, east at 2100 Zulu, east at 000 Zulu. You see all those. So we're just going to go to the southeast at 2100 Zulu and bring it up. And it looks like for the most part, the graphical error forecast is showing skies clear for the route of flight. And remember, we talked all about this in the weather information videos. So if you don't understand exactly the details of these, go back to those videos and look at that. So basically, sky clear here. Next is we're going to go to the bottom left. We're going to do the surface observation for that. We'll go southeast at 2100 Zulu. It looks like the winds are basically going to be out of the west at about 5. So according to the graphical error forecast, again, about west out of the 5. Now let's go to the terminal error forecast. Closest terminal error forecast to Gadsden is Talladega. So it's showing for our time of departure, winds should be at 280 at 5, so out of the west at 5 knots. That's about right. Greater than 6 statute miles, few clouds at 6,000. And then we're going to scroll all the way down here at PDK. PDK does have a terminal error forecast. So for Gadsden, for our weather, technically we have to be using that graphical error forecast because terminal forecast only covers 5 nautical miles radius. So for PDK, though, we don't have to just only rely on the graphical error forecast. We can go by the terminal error forecast because it covers that exact error. So 300 at 7, greater than 6 statute miles, few clouds at 5,000, scattered at 25,000. So this is the point where I go back to my airports page, and now I'm going to start looking at runways and kind of what runways to expect. So let's go to Gadsden. So the bottom left, I'm going to go to airports, and I'm going to sit here and go to search, and then I'm going to put in Kilo Golf Alpha Delta. If you want to keep it as a favorite in the top left, you can hit that star button. But what I'm going to pull up here is basically the taxiway. So I'm going to select taxiways, and then I'm going to look and see, okay, so winds are going to be about 280. So I can assume I'm probably going to be taking off on runway 24. All right, so probably taking off runway 24 at Gadsden. This is a good time now to go ahead and figure out, okay, how long is that runway? So if we go to info, and then we go down here to the chart supplement, the AFD. If you see it there, we'll click that. And we're going to look at Gadsden. And for runway 24, 6,802 feet by 150 feet. 0.3% up northeast. So it might be, it's 0.3% downhill on 24, which will make no difference whatsoever in a 172. But this is kind of where you can determine, especially for landing distance available. We'll see that at PDK in here in just a minute. If there's a displaced threshold, then you don't have that at distance available for landing. So all looks good. Probably taking off runway 24, 6,802 feet available for our performance calculations in just a minute. It's also a good time to just read the airport remarks. So stuff like parachute jumping, and so forth. So that's kind of like airport managers' little notes for maybe there's a calm wind runway or something. So always a good idea just to kind of read those airport remarks in there as well. All right, let's go then to PDK. So we know the winds are going to be about 300, I think it said. So let's kind of see what runways they have at PDK. All right, so 300 probably then will be landing. They got a runway 34, probably landing maybe a 3 left or a 3 right, pretty much a direct crosswind. So they may be landing 2-1 left or 2-1 right. So in this scenario, it may be kind of hard to kind of predetermine what runway we would have. Otherwise, maybe if the winds were out of the south at 10 knots or 15 knots forecasted, well, then you would basically know, hey, I'm going to be using probably 2-1 right or 2-1 left. But in this scenario, 3-4 would be a viable option. I would probably assume they'll probably be landing 3-4 or 3 left and 3 right. So then we can go back here to info, and then we'll go to the chart supplement, AFD, and we're going to zoom in here. So 3-4 is 3,968 feet by 150 feet. And if you'll look, these runway declared distance information. So this is the important stuff when, especially if there's displaced thresholds or whatever. So 3 right, takeoff run available. So the takeoff run is basically your pavement. It doesn't take into effect a clearway or stopway. So the takeoff run available, 5,411 feet for 3 right. Landed distance available, 5,411. If you look on 2-1 left, which that's the same runway, right? Takeoff run available now is 6,001, just because we're going in a different direction, and landed distance available is 5,001. So you can see the difference. This is the same 3 right and 2-1 left, the same runway, it's just going different directions. So for landing, if we were landing 2-1 left, we only have 5,000 feet to calculate for our landing distance available. Whereas if you just look, the runway is 6,001 feet long, but we don't have all of that available because of the displaced threshold. So that's kind of what I like to do. Look at the forecast and determine, okay, probably taking off 2-4 at Gadsden, probably landing maybe 3-4 or 0-3. I would think at PDK, it's a pretty much direct crosswind, so that could, all runways could be in play there. All right, let's go back to flights. We're going to go next to the wind chart. So this is giving you the winds aloft. In the chart format, you'll see like the +16, that's the temperature with that, and then it's just typical wind barbs. This is giving you a cross section of it. I typically skip through this, and then this is giving you the actual winds aloft. So 276 at 8 knots, 282 at 5 knots, and there's the temperatures again. And remember, if you're having to do the calculations by hand like you have to for your check ride, this is where you're getting your winds aloft information to plug in for E6B calculations. Okay, next and last is going to be the NodeMs. Okay, so departure NodeMs, we'll look here. It looks like communication remote transmitter 120.05 is out of service. That's not going to matter. The automated weather broadcast system is unreliable, so that's important. Ceilings are not available. That's important. If you look at these NodeMs, that's from 9/28 at 20:52 Zulu until October 13th at 23:59 Zulu. So that basically starts today and going to last for a while. Obstruction NodeMs, I always just kind of skip through obstruction NodeMs because I'm not able to see that light that's out on that tower for the most part. So I typically skip through those obstructions. Airspace, so it looks like parachute jumping within an area defined as 8 nautical mile radius of Gadsden, surface to 18,000 daily, 1,200 Zulu to 2,200 Zulu, and that's from September 11th at 1,200 Zulu till January the 1st at 2,200 Zulu. FDC NodeMs, you have to worry about FDC NodeMs for VFR. That's only for instrument stuffs. Down here at the bottom, destination NodeMs, this will be the last thing we look at. Communication, PDK, the transmitter 127.2 is out of service. Obstructions, I'm going to go right through that, skip that. Airspace, it looks like UAS, which is basically a drone. 1 nautical mile radius, surface to 300 feet, so that's going to be extremely low. 3 miles from the airport. If I'm at 300 feet, 3 miles from the airport, I've got other problems. Runway 34, runway end identifier, light is out of service. Don't really care about that. VFR, taxiway Bravo between approach and a runway 16 and taxiway hotel is closed. So that's 9/28 at 2,000 Zulu to 9/29 at 1,400 Zulu. So that may be important. So Bravo between approach and runway 16 and taxiway hotel is closed. Taxiway Bravo between 3 left, 2 1 right, approach and 3-4 closed. And that looks like that's been a permanent one there. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just go back to the airports, go to the taxiways, and if you'll see there at the top, you can see these same NodeMs again. So taxiway Bravo between 3 left, 2 1 right, and approaching at 3-1 closed permanent. Then taxiway Bravo between the end of 16 and taxiway Hotel. The taxiway Bravo between the end of runway 16 and hotel. So basically, this guy right here is all closed. And I'll just kind of sometimes do that so that when I land and I pull up my airport diagram like we're supposed to, I already got that marked, so I know that that part is closed. Let's go back to flights here, and that's pretty much it. And then after that, you have these en-route NodeMs, en-route communication NodeMs, service NodeMs, airspace NodeMs, special use airspace, en-route, other NodeMs, just way, way, way too much information. Remember, that W, what we're getting this with the ForeFlight briefing, weather and NodeMs, okay? So basically, our departure NodeMs and our destination NodeMs, working through that, using the TAF to get a ballpark idea. Okay, what runway am I probably going to take off with at Gadsden? What runway am I probably, based upon the forecasted winds, am I going to land at PDK? And go ahead and kind of mentally fly the trip from takeoff, cruise to descent, approach, kind of maybe going here to the maps page and looking, be landing, 3 left, probably enter the pattern here, left, and then come in. Being a towered field, though, a lot of times you may not be entering the pattern, may just be going straight in. But anyways, these are kind of the things that are going through my head to determine that. And it also determines our runway, which we get a runway length, and then we can do our performance calculations as well. So again, that raw FAT. So runway lengths for takeoff and landing, alternates, weather and NOTAMs, fuel reserves, ATC delays, which doesn't matter, and then takeoff data. So we get that takeoff data from the performance charts of the airplane. So hope this helps. This is kind of my way that I go through the ForeFlight briefing and visualize a flight before it.